Konrad Adenauer stands among the titans of 20th century European history. Rising from the rubble of Nazi Germany, Adenauer led the newly formed Federal Republic of Germany, also known as West Germany, as its first Chancellor from 1949 to 1963. His leadership marked a radical transformation of Germany from a pariah state into a democratic, economically robust, and diplomatically respected member of the Western world. A deeply religious man, a legal mind, and a pragmatic politician, Adenauer's legacy is not only etched into the institutional bedrock of modern Germany, but also in the broader architecture of European unity and the Western alliance system. To understand Adenauer is to understand the rebirth of Germany, the early Cold War, and the foundations of the European Union. Born on January 5, 1876 in Cologne, in the then Prussian Rhine province, Konrad Adenauer was the third of 5 children. His father, Johann Konrad Adenauer, was a Catholic civil servant, and his mother, Helene Scharfenberg, came from a similarly devout and disciplined background. Adenauer grew up in a home where religion, order, and education were valued deeply. Educated at the Friedrich Wilhelm Gymnasium in Cologne, he went on to study law and political science at the universities of Freiburg, Munich, and Bonn. His legal training instilled in him a deep respect for constitutional frameworks, and his Catholic upbringing anchored his social philosophy and Christian democratic principles. Adenauer began his career as a lawyer in Cologne, but it wasn't long before he ventured into politics through the Centre Party, known as Zentrum, the political home for Catholic Germans in the predominantly Protestant Reich. In 1917, amid the chaos of World War I, Adenauer was elected mayor of Cologne, a position he held until 1933. This was no ceremonial role. Cologne was one of Germany's largest cities and an economic hub. During his 16-year tenure, Adenauer was instrumental in modernizing the city. He championed public housing projects, expanded transportation infrastructure, and brought forward urban development that emphasized health, education, and employment. He initiated the construction of the Rheinbrücke, or Rhine Bridge, established a green belt around the city, and was instrumental in attracting major industries like Ford to set up plants in Cologne. Adenauer also demonstrated political pragmatism and managerial competence during the British and French occupations of the Rhineland after World War I. He advocated for regional autonomy when necessary and worked behind the scenes to stabilize municipal affairs. However, his bold vision and independence eventually drew ire from the rising Nazi regime. In 1933, after Hitler's seizure of power, Adenauer was dismissed from his post. From 1933 to 1945, Adenauer lived in political limbo. He was briefly imprisoned in 1933 and again in 1944 after the failed July 20th plot against Hitler. During these years, he remained under surveillance, lived in seclusion, and suffered the loss of his home and financial security. However, Adenauer never collaborated with the Nazi regime, earning a reputation for integrity that would serve him well in the post-war era. Though not part of the active resistance, his Catholicism, democratic convictions, and previous political record made him a silent but formidable symbol of an alternative Germany. After World War II, Germany was in ruins, physically, economically, morally, and politically. The Allied occupation divided the country into 4 zones, and political parties were reconstituted from scratch. Adenauer, by now in his 70s, re-emerged as a political force. In 1945, the Allies reappointed him as mayor of Cologne, though the British military government dismissed him later that year for political disagreements. Yet this dismissal only boosted his profile as a principled nationalist and a staunch anti-communist. Adenauer was among the founding members of the Christian Democratic Union, CDU, in 1945. A party aimed at transcending the old Catholic-Protestant divide by uniting moderate conservatives, centrists, and liberals under the banner of Christian democracy. In 1948–49, Adenauer served as president of the Parliamentary Council, which was tasked with drafting a constitution for what would become the Federal Republic of Germany, FRG. Though limited in scope by the Allies, the basic law, Grundgesetz, that emerged laid the democratic foundations of West Germany. On September 15, 1949, Konrad Adenauer was elected the first Chancellor of the FRG by a single vote. He was 73 years old. Adenauer's chancellorship was transformative. His policies spanned domestic reconstruction, foreign policy realignment, and democratic consolidation. For example, under Adenauer's leadership and Ludwig Erhard's economic direction, West Germany experienced one of the most dramatic economic recoveries in history. Fueled by the Marshall Plan, currency reform, and a social market economy, West Germany's industrial production soared. Unemployment dropped from nearly 11% in 1950 to under 1% by 1960. GDP growth averaged over 7% in the 1950s. Adenauer supported the idea that economic freedom had to be balanced with social security. His government expanded healthcare, pensions, unemployment insurance, and education, creating a model that remains central to German economic policy. His government absorbed over 10 million ethnic German refugees from Eastern Europe, an immense challenge. He promoted integration and equal rights, helping to avert social unrest. Adenauer believed that focusing too much on retribution would cripple the new state. He allowed former Nazi party members to re-enter civil service and political life, arguing that reconciliation was necessary for national unity, a pragmatic but ethically contested decision. Adenauer's foreign policy was anchored in Westbindung, binding the FRG to the Western Bloc. In 1955, West Germany joined NATO, marking its re-entry into the international community. Adenauer overcame domestic opposition by arguing that rearmament was essential to sovereignty and deterrence against Soviet aggression. Adenauer and French President Charles de Gaulle developed a close partnership. Their Élysée Treaty of 1963 formalized cooperation in education, culture, and diplomacy, helping to bury centuries of enmity between France and Germany. Adenauer was one of the founding fathers of European unity. He helped create the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951, the Treaty of Rome in 1957, which established the European Economic Community, and Euratom, the European Atomic Energy Community. These institutions laid the groundwork for today's European Union. The Holstein Doctrine was a foreign policy doctrine that declared that the FRG would not establish or maintain diplomatic relations with any state that recognized the German Democratic Republic. It symbolized Adenauer's belief in German unity through strength, not compromise. Adenauer was a complex figure, both deeply conservative and radically forward-thinking. He distrusted ideological purism and valued practical outcomes. His political style was autocratic, yet effective. His cabinet was often kept in the dark until decisions were finalized. He saw democracy as a moral imperative, rooted in Christian ethics. His personal rigidity, he never traveled without his own mattress, and his unrelenting work ethic earned both admiration and criticism. While Adenauer's achievements were vast, so were his shortcomings. He tried to extend presidential powers, attempted to stack the judiciary, and suppressed leftist parties. Many believed he clung to power too long. He did not voluntarily step down until 1963 at age 87. His hardline stance toward East Germany may have delayed détente and reunification efforts. And his policies of reintegration enabled economic recovery but postponed Germany's reckoning with its past. Adenauer finally stepped down in 1963, succeeded by Ludwig Erhard. He remained a member of the Bundestag and an influential CDU figure until his death in 1967, aged 91. He published memoirs and gave public speeches well into his late 80s, his mind as sharp as ever. Adenauer's impact is impossible to overstate. He anchored West Germany to the West, restored German dignity on the world stage, fostered European integration, and helped create an enduring democratic culture in Germany. Today, he is remembered not only as the father of the Federal Republic, but also as a key figure in Cold War diplomacy and the post-war European project. His legacy lives on in institutions like the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, in the ongoing strength of the CDU, and in the deep European-German relationship he worked tirelessly to cultivate. Konrad Adenauer's life spanned an empire, 2 world wars, a failed democracy, a fascist dictatorship, and finally, a successful democracy. He didn't just witness history, he made it. He took the helm of a broken nation and steered it with unshakable resolve, cautious pragmatism, and a vision rooted in Western unity and Christian humanism. If history is a stern teacher, Adenauer was one of its best students, and perhaps in time, its most masterful practitioner. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Blistering History.